Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Shelly, and I'm back with another short story. I'm really excited. I know it's been a while since I've recorded a short story. Life has taken me in many other directions, but I am back. And I wanted to just let people know that even though I just released this new book that is not a short story, I still have short stories in my veins and my blood, and I absolutely still plan on still sharing them with you. So this one is one I've been working on, and I wanted to go ahead and read it for you. You're going to have to excuse me a little bit. I've got a cold and some allergies going, and I'm a little bit short of breath. It's not going to be super best professional quality, but I'm here to read it for you like I always have as a free audiobook, just to help you escape the mundane, chaotic world and, use that beautiful brain and imagination of yours. So this story is called Her Own Heaven, written by myself, Shelly Moore, for my website, limitlessstimulus.com. Mara is 42. Her youngest child just graduated high school, and for the first time in over 2 decades, she was no longer anyone's default caretaker. She'd been quietly saving crumpled bills in a mason jar beneath her side of the bed, waiting for the moment she could finally exhale. When that moment came, she bought a used RV with questionable shocks and duct-taped cabinets and left. She left a note on the counter for her husband. "Finding myself. Might be back. Don't wait up." And she texted her grown kids, "Finding myself. Bought an old RV, headed to Sedona for a bit. Please don't forget, this is my first time living too. Love, Mom. P.S. Bodie and Frank are with me. They're fine. They deserve an adventure too." She made it as far as rural Midwest America before the RV started coughing up strange electrical glitches. A weird flickering from the dash, radio static that sounded like underwater voices, then a total power failure on an empty stretch of highway. Mara pulled off to the side of the road, popped open the hood, and muttered half-sarcastic prayers to the engine gods. The last thing she remembers is headlights. Blinding, bright, barreling toward her too fast. Then, blackness. She woke up in a stranger's bed, her dogs, Bodie and Frank, curled beside her. Safe, breathing, real. But something was off. The light filtering through the gauzy curtains was too muted. The colors around her looked slightly drained, like a faded photograph from a thrift store bin. She sat up, disoriented, and reached for her phone, but it was gone. It wasn't in the bed, and it wasn't on the nightstand. She stood, wobbly, and walked down the stairs toward the smell of something cooking. A sweet, elderly couple was in the living room. The man sat stoically behind a newspaper too large for his small hands, his face completely hidden. The woman was already mid-sentence when Mara appeared in the doorway as if they'd been expecting her. "Oh, there you are, sweet pea. I've got eggs going and toast and juice if you'd like. You like apple or orange?" Mara blinked. "Where am I?" "Oh, you poor thing. You must be shaken up, but don't worry, you're safe here." The woman, her apron was embroidered with the word Mimsy in a florid pink script, kept dancing between the counter and the fridge, dodging the question entirely. "I need to know what happened," Mara pressed. I need to find my RV." "Oh, hush now," Mimsy said with a cluck of her tongue. "You'll love it here." Mara tried again. Can I leave the dogs here a minute? I just need to figure out what happened. I'll be right back." The man flipped a page of his oversized paper with a sound like dry leaves. Still hadn't spoken. Still hadn't moved. "Oh, sure, they'll be just fine," Mimsy beamed. "They like it here. Everyone does eventually." Mara stepped outside and froze. The suburban neighborhood was alive with activity, but disjointed. People walked the sidewalks in clothes from every decade. A teenage boy in bell-bottoms, a woman in a 1950s house dress watering plastic flowers, a man in a Civil War jacket walking a bulldog. Every lawn was manicured with an eerie symmetry. And they all turned to look at her. They waved, enthusiastic, too eager, like theme park actors during a parade. One woman ran toward her, arms outstretched. "Oh my goodness, you must be new. We haven't had fresh faces in so long." Mara took a step back. "Where am I?" A man stepped up beside the woman. "Hell," he said flatly. The woman playfully smacked his arm. "Limeberg, my dear. Welcome to Limeberg." Mara asked if there was a mechanic nearby. 4 blocks down on Blanche Street," someone said. "Tell Bart we said hi." She followed the directions, half walking, half jogging, through a maze of 2 perfect roads until she found a rusted shop sign that read, "Bart's Mufflers and More." Sitting outside was a middle-aged man in a greasy tank top, belly hanging just past his waistband, seated in a faded lawn chair. He stroked his salt and pepper beard absently, staring into the distance like someone who hadn't blinked in hours. "Hi," Mara said. Nothing. "Excuse me." She tried again, still nothing. She walked closer to touch his shoulder. He flinched like he'd forgotten he'd had a body. "I'm looking for my RV," she said. He blinked at her. "Business been slow. Haven't seen an RV in years." He shrugged. "Can't remember. Maybe ask again later." She sighed. "Can I use your phone?" He nodded toward the office. "Front desk." Mara pushed open the door. The air inside was stale with the scent of oil and mildew. On the desk sat a dusty phone. She picked up the receiver. Silence. Not static, not a busy tone, just nothing. She pressed the hook switch, slapped it a few times like she used to as a kid. Still dead. A jar of dusty peppermints sat beside it. A corkboard held a grid of old photos, faded people with whitewashed eyes from sun exposure. A calendar read, April 1977. She hung up the phone slowly. Behind her, a fax machine's display flickered, not numbers but letters, strange ones, foreign symbols she didn't recognize. In its dark reflection, she caught glimpses of her own face. Her reflection blinked a second too late. She spun around, nothing behind her, nothing in the room but silence and dust and a faint hum in the walls. She backed out fast. "Hey," she shouted, "didn't you say you haven't seen an RV in 10 years? "Mm-hmm," he nodded, not quite looking at her. "Most folks come in by foot or drift in on the wind. Had a girl ride a pony once, back in..." He drifted off. Mara stood frozen, her fingers still brushing the lifeless phone receiver. A flicker of memory cut through her haze. Headlights, blinding, barreling toward her. Her pulse kicked. The truck, the road. She tried to steady her breathing. Maybe I'm dreaming, she thought. Maybe I'm in a coma somewhere. I'm in a hospital bed, tubes in my arms. Maybe this is just a dreamscape my brain's concocting to make sense of the unconsciousness. I've had weirder dreams than this. I've had more vivid dreams than this. "'Tain't no dream," came a gravelly voice. She spun around. The mechanic hadn't moved. Not really. Still slouched in his chair, still stroking that coarse beard, but his eyes were now locked on her, twinkling with something she couldn't name, something that made her spine feel too long for her body. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. He chuckled, a deep wheezing sound that shook his belly like a sack of wet laundry. It morphed into a full-blown smoker's cough, violent and ragged, echoing off the shop walls. He hacked and wheezed until tears glistened in the corners of his eyes. Then, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, he grinned. "Don't worry, darling. You'll get used to it." She didn't wait to hear the rest. She was already moving. By the time he shouted after her, "You'll get used to it," she was halfway down the block, heart pounding, legs trembling beneath her. She needed her dogs. Bodie and Frank were real. This place, this pastel purgatory, this polite hellscape, it wasn't. She just hoped her memory wasn't lying to her and that the house was still there. Mara returned to the elderly couple's house with urgency in her step, panic tightening her chest. The moment she opened the front door, her dogs came barreling toward her, tails wagging, tongues out, whining and licking her face like they'd been waiting for years. She collapsed in the foyer, spine against the wood-paneled door, and slid down until her legs sprawled out in front of her. Her breath hitched as the sobs came, full-bodied, gasping, helpless. She didn't care who saw. Her fingers curled into the thick fur of her dogs, grounding herself to the only thing in the surreal world that felt real. The old woman appeared first, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. "Well, honey," she began, her tone warm but cautious. Then the old man's voice, dry and abrupt from behind his paper. "You died. Welcome to hell." The old woman let out a sharp gasp and tossed the towel at his face, swatting his newspaper in the process. He grunted, barely fazed, but made a show of straightening the pages anyway. Mara looked up at them, eyes red, cheeks streaked, breath shallow. The old woman sighed and crouched gently beside her. "You poor darling. I'm sorry. He's not wrong, but his delivery's about as soft as a bag of hammers." She reached out, brushing a bit of Mara's hair behind her ear like a mother might. "Something must have happened to you and your lovely boys." She smiled down at the dogs, who leaned into her hand with surprising familiarity. "All new intakes arrive here first, where I welcome them as best I can." She paused, folding the towel in her lap like it helped her think. "Your body and theirs," she nodded at the dogs with affection, "have expired, Mara." Mara's stomach turned to stone. She never told them her name. Not once. The old man turned another page of his oversized newspaper, the dry rustle of it filling the silence like a slow metronome. The old woman lowered herself gently to Mara's level and patted the dogs on either side, her hands warm and unbothered. "It's not so bad here," she said, eyes glinting with something between kindness and resignation. "You do get used to it." Mara shuddered, one of those deep, violent tremors that starts in the gut and spreads like static through the limbs. Her jaw clenched as her hands gripped tighter around her dog's collars. The world felt warped, saturated but faded, like a memory pretending to be real. And then suddenly, she bolted. Up on her feet in an instant, heart pounding, lungs burning. The dogs followed without question, their nails clicking against the wood floor, then the porch, then the cracked sidewalk. Her cries spilled from her mouth uncontrollably, raw and ragged as she ran past neighbor after neighbor. Faces turned, curtains parted. "Poor thing," someone whispered. "She'll be okay," another murmured. A man's voice called out from a porch swing, "You can't leave." But she didn't stop. She ran until her breath was sharp knives and her calves screamed, until she reached the end of the street and turned the corner onto an unfamiliar road. And there, bright headlights. Too fast, too close, too blinding. The impact never came. But she awoke in the same bed. The same stiff quilt, the same floral wallpaper curling at the edges, the same house. The same dogs, still there, still warm, lay quietly at her side. Somewhere downstairs, a newspaper page turned again. Mara stirred awake once again beneath the quilt, her body whole but her soul unraveling. The dogs lay pressed close, as if they had too begun to sense the pattern, the futility, the trap. At the foot of the bed, the elderly woman sat calmly in an old wooden chair, knitting something soft and pink. Her hands moved like clockwork, her voice quiet, nearly melodic. "I'm sorry, dear," she said gently. "I should have warned you, but you didn't give me much time to explain anything yesterday. It's not your fault. It's understandable, really." Mara wiped her eyes. It didn't feel like waking from sleep. It felt like being sewn back into the same body each time, stitch by haunted stitch. The woman continued. "Okay, well, here's the story. Frank and I bought this house in 1923. First one we ever owned. Married later in life, me at 27, him at 32. This was our dream. But May of 24, that's when the freight train came through. She paused. Not a real one. It's a tornado. It hit us in the middle of the night. No one even stood a chance. The whole town flattened. Her knitting slowed. I woke up during. I tried to wake Frank, but the ceiling had already come down. He went fast. He didn't even stir. I lingered for hours. My mouth was full of blood. I couldn't scream. I tried. I couldn't move. I just listened to myself die. She smiled faintly, something tragic wrapped in politeness. Well, she said, standing and brushing imaginary dust from her apron, enough about me. The point is, you die around here, you end up here. That's just how it goes. We'll get you a proper house of your own today. There's 2 nice ones down on Burkhart Street near the old train station. One's got a porch swing with a view, but you can pick. She patted Mara's shin before drifting back down the stairs like a memory. That evening, while the sky hung in that golden hour hush, the old man stood on the porch with his newspaper folded under one arm. He'd never spoken much, but now he looked at Mara with something fierce in his eyes, or maybe pity, or warning. You know, he said, voice hoarse from disuse, she built this place. Mara blinked. What do you mean? He sighed. With her pain, with her grief, with all that love for this damn house she couldn't let go of. When that twister took the town, it cracked something open, and she filled that crack with memory, made a whole damn town out of it, a neighborhood, a prison. Mara stood still, her dogs pressed at her side. She never forgave the world for taking what she loved, so she made a place where nothing ever leaves. Not really. Mara swallowed hard. Can she undo it? He looked back through the screen door where his wife hummed softly in the kitchen. She could, he said, almost inaudibly, if someone helped her remember. Mara's eyes narrowed. She made this place out of love, he said, but also fear, and fear don't let the dead rest. Mara stepped into the kitchen, her heart thudding in a steady drumbeat behind her ribs. The old woman sat at the table, knitting what now looked like a dog sweater in soft shades of blue. The smell of cinnamon and something burning lingered in the air. I know what this place is, Mara said gently. The old woman didn't look up. Do you now? You built it, Mara continued, stepping closer. With grief, with love so strong it turned into something else. This town, it's you. It's your memory, your refusal to let go. She was still knitting, still humming faintly. I'm not judging you, Mara added, her voice cracking. I just think maybe you could let go now. Maybe you could set us all free. The needles stopped. The room thickened. The old woman raised her eyes slowly. And go where, dear? There's nothing left for me out there. Nothing waiting. Tension gathered between them like smoke. If you want to go, the old woman said after a pause, go. Ain't no one stopping you. Relief flickered in Mara's chest until the woman added, leave the dogs. I love the dogs. Mara blinked. No. You'll be fine, she said, waving her hand like it was nothing. They'll be fed, played with, they'll be happy. No, Mara repeated, stepping backward. They're mine. They're my babies. You're being selfish now. I'll tell the town, Mara said, surprising even herself with the heat behind the words. I'll tell everyone what you did, what this place is. The woman's gaze sharpened, her voice softened into something far more dangerous. "We can't have that," she whispered. When Mara awoke again, the sun looked the same through gauzy curtains, but this time the door wouldn't open. She jiggled the knob, rattled it harder, slammed her fist onto the wood. Nothing. Outside the room, the sounds of morning life returned, clinking dishes, distant chatter, a faint radio crackle. The world spun on like a record stuck on a beautiful loop. Downstairs, the old man flipped a page in his newspaper. The old woman sat beside him, knitting the blue sweater. "She'll come around," he muttered. The woman smiled without looking up. "They always do."